Welcome to Commercial Real Estate Pro Network's CRE PN Radio. Thanks for joining us. My name is J. Darren Gross. This is the podcast focused on commercial real estate investment and risk management strategies. Weekly, we have conversations with commercial real estate investors and professionals who provide their experience and insight to help you grow your real estate portfolio. Today, my guest is Chris Craddock. Chris is the nationally certified life coach in leadership and one of the top real estate professionals in the world, closing 30 to 65 deals a month. Chris is the host of the Uncommon Real Estate podcast, a realtor and an entrepreneur. And in just a minute, we're going to speak with Chris about how to turn dead leads into an explosive revenue stream without increasing marketing costs, and completely eliminate the need for expensive marketing channels. But first, a quick reminder, if you like our show, CRE PN Radio, there are a couple things you can do to help us out. You can like, share, and subscribe. And as always, we encourage you to leave a comment. We love to hear from our listeners. Also, if you'd like to see how handsome our guests are, be sure to check out our YouTube channel. You can find us on YouTube at Commercial Real Estate Pro Network. And while you're there, please subscribe. With that, I want to welcome my guest, Chris. Welcome to CRE PN Radio.
Hey, glad to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, I'm looking forward to our conversation. Before we get started, if you could take just a minute and share with the listeners a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so I started out, graduated from school in 2000. I was working for an organization called Young Life, which I just absolutely loved Young Life. It was amazing. But I made $20,000 a year. And so when my wife got pregnant, it was hard to live in the DC area on that. And so I went and checked out every book I could find on investing. And one of the things I found in life is that massive imperfect action will win the day. And so I just started knocking on doors of people that were in distress. And I did not know how to, I have no idea how to flip houses or how to even put people under contract. But I just started knocking on doors. And when I got somebody that said they'd do it, I had to go find somebody that could even help me with the contract. That's how little I knew. And so, so I just found somebody, ended up splitting the deal with them. And that was kind of the deal. Long story short, I continued doing ministry stuff, just made a lot more money. I made 12 times is what I made in a year in about 4 months. And so that kept me being able to do ministry stuff for a while, and always led large groups of people. And so I'd gone back to school a couple times, ended up getting a doctorate in leadership because I love leading people. I think it's pretty amazing to be able to help other people accomplish their goals. And heck, you make so much money if you help other people accomplish their goals. You make a lot of money together. And so one thing led to another. I ended up getting back into real estate investing, and then I built a retail team, and then we learned how to mesh the two together. And then we ended up going from there to a place where we just, I have 11 other businesses now that are all synergistic to the real estate community. But I'll tell you, all of that happened as we found ways to just grow the footprint, expand what we're doing. And one of the big pieces there is just, monetizing those dead leads, making sure that you're not paying for things that just lay dead in your CRM. So that's kind of my story in 30 seconds. Maybe it was a minute.
No, that's awesome, man. I'm curious to know the kind of the affiliated businesses, because I mean that's one of the things I think I've always recognized is how many transactions somebody that's in real estate is, in line to entertain or has to purchase somewhere. Can you share a little bit about some of the other businesses you're in?
Yeah, sure. I own a title business. I have my wife is a branch manager of a lending business. I have construction. I have a fix and flip business. I have a coaching business. I have I lose track, a legal shield business. I have a rental portfolio. So anyway, I mean, pretty much it just all around real estate is kind of where we're in. And I lose track of all of them because the great thing is I have business partners that run each one of those. So I don't have to worry about it. Actually, one of the things when I was part of Keller Williams for a long time before we switched over to TXP. And, I was able to be personally mentored by Gary Keller, which was one of the great things in my life that I'll tell you, because he's just really a smart guy. But one of the things he said is you can have as many businesses as you want, as long as they all have a folder and there's a face on that folder, and that folder does not have your face on the folder. And so that's kind of how we've been growing our businesses, is finding great partners that can run with those different pieces and make it happen.
Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about the leads, generating leads, and then rather than just walking away from them when they don't produce, how to, resurrecting those leads or keeping them live. What's do you have a method, or how do you look at that?
Yeah. So here's what happens. Most investors, if you're spending any money on leads at all, most investors will, let's say you have 20 people that raise their hand and say, I want to sell my property, right? Just logically. And I've had some people say, oh no, we dial in, we only get distressed sellers. That's bogus. It's just not true, right? It is not true. You're going to get, if you get 20 people that say they're going to sell their property, and everybody that said that, like I've gotten to be good friends with a lot of these folks. And then when we actually dive in, they're like, well, I mean, it's, then they backpedal when you actually look at the leads. Because if they say we only get that many people that are going to sell their property, and let's say they get, for every 20 leads, maybe 4 of them are going to say, hey, I'm willing to sell at 65 to 75 cents on the dollar. And of those 4, then they're going to lock up 1, right? So that's kind of what you're seeing. Well, what happens for the other 16 that aren't willing to sell at 65 to 75 cents on the dollar, right? They're still going to sell, and somebody's going to get paid, either an investor that pays too much or a real estate agent. Somebody's going to get paid. It's just not you, right? And then the other 3 that raise their hand, somebody's going to get paid. It's not you. I call it reverse wholesaling here, because the reality is you don't have to do dispo. You don't have to do all of these other things that these wholesalers do. You don't even have to buy the property. You just have to find a great partner. And it's really important to find a great partner, because so many people have been doing this for a long time, but they're missing a little piece to it. Like I've done so much research, and I found that so many people have tried to connect with real estate agents and list these deals, but they've had such little success, because the idea seems like it works, but the handoff has been incorrect. In the program that I teach, in the program that I went through, more than any other program out there, if you don't follow it to a T, it falls apart and it doesn't work, and nobody makes money.
No, that's pretty keen insight there, the handoff. It's one thing to have somebody that can do good work, but if it's not properly set up or the introduction's not properly made, I can see how that'd be you're not going to get to the finish line.
Well, there's 2 pieces too that I'd love to just throw out there. One is just because somebody's a great real estate agent doesn't mean they know how to talk to investors, right? Because investors, they called an investor back because everybody's got a brother's uncle who's a real estate agent, right? Somebody's a hairdresser is a real estate agent. There's more real estate agents than there are active listing on the market. So there are so many real estate agents out there. Why are they going to choose your person? They're not. So if you don't choose somebody that understands the psychology of an investor, they called an investor, they're talking to an investor for one of 5 reasons, then you're not going to speak their language. And if you don't speak their language, you're not going to be building rapport, and they're not going to want to talk to your person, and your person's not going to close them up, and nobody's going to make money. They're just going to go find a real estate agent that's, a termite guy and a real estate agent.
Right. No, that's awesome. So your the dead leads, do you have any kind of a sense of how many or how much effort people put into generating leads and how little they do with the leads? I mean, we were talking a little bit about the 20 calls and the 4 that might sell and the 1 that you get listed. Do you have any sense of the numbers?
Yeah. So, well, here's the difference. Here's the problem, is that there's not anything across the board, because in real estate investing, more than anything else, because there's a low barrier to entry, which is great. Like anybody that's hungry can make a lot of money in real estate investing. The problem is with a low barrier to entry is that there are a lot of people that have no idea what they're doing. And so their numbers are much more skewed than the people that have been doing it for a while and have built these like multi-million-dollar systems that are out there. But what I can say across the board is even with the people that have these multi-million-dollar systems in place, because I'm friends with a lot of them, actually most of the big people in the country, like I've got a relationship with. So I've seen their inner workings. And the reality is when you have a ton of people come in, you're going to say, are these people likely to fit in our buy box? And if so, then people follow up like crazy, right? And the fortune's in the follow-up. We know that. But the reality is there's so many leads that are not in their buy box. And so they go into another bucket where they still get followed up with, they still get email drips, they still get in touch with, but they're not getting that same amount of persistence. So all of those, I mean, frankly, almost every single one of those leads are going to end up selling their house with somebody. It's probably going to be some random real estate agent. And the reality is like that is money that's going to somebody else. It's not going to you. So I'll give you an analogy. So the lumber, there was this thing happening in the lumber industry, right? These milling companies were just barely breaking even on milling lumber, right? And I feel like that, I'll tell you, I'm friends with a lot of people that are just in that place where they're just barely breaking even. I mean, you see all the bells and whistles and the smoke and mirror, but the reality is most people are just eking by and investing until they blow it out of the water. And so here's the thing: all of a sudden, this guy in the like that was these people that were milling wood, they realized that the byproduct, the stuff they were throwing away, the sawdust, could be repurposed. And so they started repurposing it. They started selling it for fuel. They started compressing it and creating particle board for cabinets. They started just finding all these other uses for it, selling the sawdust, and all of a sudden going from just barely eking by to becoming massively profitable, making almost as much money on the stuff they were throwing away as the stuff that they were actually doing as their main source of business. And when you realize that that's what people are doing with their dead leads right now, they're just throwing it away like the sawdust, but it is actually massively profitable. What could happen if you could make an extra $10,000 a month? Heck, I've got one group that makes an average of over $60,000 every single month. What would happen if you had an average of an extra $60,000 every month coming in to pay for all of your overhead, everything that you're doing, so that everything you make is profit? How does that change your life, and how does that change your business?
Yeah, well, sign me up. I mean, that's literally the challenge here is trying to, produce more and cover more expenses and more profit, right?
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about this. So we've talked about you have the leads, and that the notion that each one of these prospects, they're going to sell. So how are you, positioning yourself? Is it like, we talked a little bit about the different types of businesses. Is it relationships to where you're knowing where to send somebody if you specialize in something, or is it, I mean, how, because I'm kind of, I mean, I get the concept of the leads and stuff, but how are you converting those, or, staying in front of those people to where it's something that you can profit from?
So you connect with a real estate agent, not just a real estate agent, a specifically minded real estate agent that knows how to speak to investors. You make sure that real estate agent fits this 4 categories, and these 4 categories are really important for anybody you're in business with: happy, hungry, humble, and smart. Right? If they're not happy, it's just a matter of time before they get annoyed with your relationship and they're out somewhere else. Look for the patterns in their life, not potential. It's always patterns. Happy, hungry. Literally, if somebody says no, are you able to read smoke screens and figure out how to get to a yes? Or does a no just mean like, oh, they said no, I'm going to go find somebody else? So happy, hungry, humble. I'll tell you what, there's a massive difference between confidence and humility. A lot of times people think that confident people are not humble. That's not true. Humility is people that are willing to find people that are amazing at what they do, good at what they do, a system that works, and say, I don't know everything. Let me sit at your feet and learn how to do this. This is what I do every day. I mean, heck, I spend over 6 figures every year on personal coaching and development because I think it's so important for me to grow. I know my business grows to the extent that I grow, which is, in my opinion, what humility is being willing to learn from others instead of thinking you know everything. And then smart is, it doesn't mean just that you got a high IQ or high on the SATs, although that would be helpful. But also a high EQ. Do you know how to deal with people? Are you smart in how you learn? Are you a quick learner? Right? We call it the stupid tax. You pay the stupid tax where you make the same mistake over and over and over again, or are you somebody that when you make a mistake, you learn from it and then you adjust? Right? That's humility and that's being smart. So that's part of really understanding this, so that your partner has to understand that. And then the next piece is you need to understand the psychology of the lead, right? If somebody called an investor, they called an investor for a reason. They didn't want to talk to a real estate agent for a handful of reasons. One, they didn't want to pay they didn't want to pay commissions, so they called an investor. Two, maybe they need to sell fast. Maybe they're being relocated. Maybe their house, maybe they're in some sort of financial distress. They need to sell fast. Three, maybe they think their house is too jacked up to sell on the MLS, so they didn't want to talk to anybody on that front. Four, maybe they're a hoarder and they're embarrassed about their situation and they don't want people to see their house and see what's going on in there. Or five, they just want the convenience. Like when I sold my car, I decided to trade it in rather than sell it on Craigslist. I knew I'd make more money if I sold it on Craigslist, but I just didn't want people coming to my house and trying to beat me up over $2,500. I'm like, you know what? $2,500 isn't worth my time. Let me just do it, right? So convenience. And if you understand that people are wanting to sell to an investor for one of those 5 reasons and not a regular real estate agent, then you can speak to that. Then you get your scripts right for that. Then you can understand how to speak their language.
Gotcha. Now, so a couple things that you mentioned there, definitely psychology, which kind of seems like that's kind of the lead thing, understanding the prospect and potentially the buyer. You mentioned scripts there. How much of the sales process do you find is a quote scripted, or is it more of just a understanding the important points to where you can touch those and again in the psychology of the buyer, or whoever it is, the investor, that you're in their kind of a vernacular?
Yeah. So this is one of the reasons why I pay so much money for coaching personally, is because I pay for speed. I think in order to get to be world class at something, you should imitate and then innovate, right? And so you think about scripting, and a lot of times people push back on scripting, but even the alphabet, even the English language is a script, right? I think about my daughter. She just turned 5. Sometimes she uses the wrong words. And we all know it, but she doesn't know it, right? And so that's what happens when we're sitting across a table from a prospective seller. We use the wrong words. They know it, but oftentimes you don't know it. And then you don't, and this goes back to being a quick learner, right? You don't even know it until you don't get the sale. And then they've told you that you use the wrong words, because they're going to sell with somebody. They're just not going to sell with you. So if you had that appointment to do 100 times in a row until you got it right, could you get it right? Yes. The problem is you did it wrong, right? And everybody wants to blame the seller. You got to take ownership. That's the only way to grow. And I know these are hard words, right? Hard words make soft people, soft words make hard people, right? So that's that whole idea there, is like, take ownership and say, if I had this to do 100 times over again, would I have walked out with a sale? And if the answer is yes, that means that you use the wrong wording, which means you probably use the wrong scripting. And so think about like the alphabet, right? Think about the English language. My daughter uses the wrong words. As she gets older, she learns to use the right words. And then that's how you imitate. And then she has her own vernacular, like the things that she says that's a little bit different from everybody else. And that's where she innovates, right? So I'll say one last thing on scripting. My wife is a professional writer, and she says that the people that are the best, that are the best in the world, they break the rules of writing. She said the people that are the worst writers break the rules of writing. The difference is the people that are the worst writers, they don't know the rules of writing. And so they just break the rules. And so they don't know what they're doing. They don't know why it's wrong. The people that are the best writers, they understand the rules and they know how to break them, in an innovative way. So that's why scripting is so important, is you've got to learn the right rules, learn what you're saying, and then you can add your own piece to it. But if you just, that's the problem with creative entrepreneurs, is they try to innovate too soon and they haven't learned why you say what you say, and then they innovate and then they have failure.
No, that's really that's key insight there. That's great. So we've been talking primarily about the prospects, and as I'm understanding, where, I mean, are they this, are they that, or where can they be helped most, kind of thing. You mentioned the prospect that says no, but like you said, they're going to sell eventually, and somebody's going to get paid. Do you have any kind of rules on follow up, or, I mean, because the sales cycle. I mean, I've been in sales for almost 30 years now. The sales is a numbers game. That's always held true. I mean, you got to talk to people to get to sale, not just one person you call is going to say, God, I've been waiting for your call.
Right.
So just by the law of numbers, you've got to get in and identify yay, nay, and then kind of go through a process to determine whether or not they're a prospect or not. But a lot of times, knowing that they're not a prospect right now, then there's kind of the follow-up process. And I know that there's all sorts of different schools of thought on the number of, quote, touches and that kind of thing, and the value of the information that you're putting in front of somebody. Do you have any kind of thoughts on that, as far as the follow-up process?
Yeah. I mean, for me personally, I think you need to follow up until they tell you to to get lost, or or they say, yeah, when can we meet? So that's my take. The fortune's in the follow up. So you just keep following up, keep following up. The reality though is, for an investor, if you can't see that somebody is going to sell, but not going to sell in your buy box, for every one person that shocks you and sells way low, you've got probably about 20 or 30 times where you could have gotten paid if you would have handed that off. So it's a law of numbers. That's one of the other things. I've seen one of the groups that we worked with that literally decided to work harder on follow-up, and instead of handing stuff off. And for a couple months while they were trying that, it ended up, they got one extra deal, but it ended up costing them almost $40,000 a month in what they were getting in the revenue from their dead leads. So it just made so much more sense to be passing off deals.
Gotcha. So essentially, the focus on this is not necessarily that the opportunities are necessarily going to be a sale for you, but it's identifying who they need the help, what it is they're looking for, so that you can then direct them, and then in basically teeing this up for whoever your partner is that you've got I'm assuming, a pre-established relationship with, an agreement like that you could refer and get paid on sales. Am I understanding the different
Yeah.
kind of
I mean,
steps?
the key is to pick the right person,
Right.
and you got to do it in a way that's compliant, but you pick the right person. And it's not just some friend. It's not a high producing agent. It is
Right.
the right person. And I'll tell you, I mean, I've seen so many high producing agents that have failed miserably trying to do this on their own, just trying to figure it out, because they literally have their own way of doing it. And they don't understand that people called an investor for a reason. They don't want to talk to a regular agent. And if you don't understand that psychology, you're just in a lot of trouble. And so that's the whole thing. So you got to find the right person that is willing to learn, willing to say, I'm humble enough to be really good at what I do, but I'm willing to learn the scripts and memorize the scripts and dialogues.
Got it. And so the people that you're connecting these sellers to are essentially investors themselves. Is that kind of what you're trying to, or is that a lot of the times who you're connecting with?
Well, yeah, I mean that's the whole thing is you're looking for either investors that are looking to buy for that, but the great thing about that is a lot of these people want closer to retail, so the agent is able to put it on the MLS in the model that they do, able to put it on the MLS and get these sellers that want close to retail, get them retail pricing, which is what they're going to end up doing, working with some random real estate agent or some investor that's going to overpay or make a promise and then walk during the study period when they realize they've overpaid. So you're able to get them in so that they're able to sell at retail prices.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So again, it kind of goes back to, um, being educated and being able to understand what the caller on the other line or the other end of the phone is looking for and how best to serve them. And if they want to sell low, because like I said, they've got one of the issues you mentioned, that might be a good referral then to an investor. You've got a relationship with the right person. And then likewise, if it's not, they want to, or it's a better fit to go on the MLS, then get that set up as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So got
100%.
it,
And
got
that,
it.
and that's the whole thing. You just think about it. I mean, these people have a problem, right? And who makes the most money in the world is people that solve the other people's problems, right? I like to think of myself as a doctor, right? Well, I actually am a doctor, but but my kids like to tell me I'm a doctor that can't do anything. Like I can't
Right,
help
right,
people.
right.
I'm like, okay, but I like to think of myself like an MD. You think about what an MD does, right? I've had 4 shoulder surgeries because I played rugby and wrestled like when I was younger, and I just beat myself up. But I've had 4 shoulder surgeries, and so when I went into the doctor, when my left shoulder was the one I've had 3 surgeries on, was all jacked up last year, he started doing all these like tests until he did something called the crank test, where you like cranked it around, and literally I wanted to scream like a little, like a a elementary school girl, and or an elementary school boy, and I have a couple of those, so they scream pretty loud too. But I want to scream like crazy. And he's like, "Oh, does that hurt?" And I was like, "Yes." And then the crazy thing is he did it again. And I was like, "Come on." So he found the pain point, he pressed on the pain point, and then he told me what the problem was and what the solution was. And I think that is what we should be doing as salespeople, is finding out the reason they're selling is because there's some sort of pain point. If we can find out what that pain point is, then we can press on that pain point, and then we can give them a solution. And if their solution is, listen, I don't want to have surgery, like I don't like, let's call surgery the selling at 65 cents on the dollar, where it's like a guaranteed, like we'll buy now. I don't want to have surgery. Why don't well, then your other option is rehab. Rehab is a little less, or whatever it is, physical therapy, PT. So your other option is to go in a couple times a week and get this thing done. It's less draconian, but it's something that you can do. That's what REI Revive is if somebody doesn't want to do like, hey, 65 cents on the dollar, well, we've got another option for you. But the problem that I see over and over again is almost all investors, they have one tool in their tool belt, right? They can buy at 65 cents on the dollar. Well, if you've only got a hammer, everything looks like a nail, and then you get square pegs, round holes. You're not able to do that. That's why when you can say, okay, you have a problem here. I don't only have one tool. I've got a couple different tools. I got different ways to solve this. Then you can get paid every time somebody has a problem, because you can say, I can solve your problem this way, or I can solve your problem this way. How would you like to get your problem solved? And the people that solve problems are the people that make the most money.
No, I love it. That's, again, a reminder, like, the analogy you said about the hammer and the nail. If you only have one solution, you're gonna have to hunt a lot for those nails that fit. Otherwise, you're gonna miss a lot of other opportunities where there's a problem, but your solution isn't necessarily the right one. You've got to find other right people that can help your prospects and make them clients and get paid. I like it.
Yeah.
Hey, Chris, if we could, I'd like to shift gears here for a second.
Sure.
By day, I'm an insurance broker, and I work with my clients to assess risk and determine what to do with the risk. And there's three strategies we typically consider. We look to see if we can first avoid the risk. If we can't avoid it, then we look to see if we can minimize the risk. And then if we can't avoid nor minimize, we look to see if we can transfer the risk. And that's what an insurance policy is. And I like to ask my guests if they can look at their own situation, their clients, the market, investors, tenants, however you would like to frame the situation, or to consider what the biggest risk is. And for clarification, I'm not necessarily looking for an insurance related answer. So if you're willing, I'd like to ask you, Chris Craddock, what is the biggest risk?
In doing, like, working in this program?
Yeah, with however you see with your clients, or with your, or somebody that is trying to generate more leads, or however you'd like to frame the question, is up for you to define.
Yeah, I think the biggest risk is not having a great partner, and therefore sending on deals that you shouldn't have sent over that get cannibalized, where you could have gotten a deal on it. And the partner isn't somebody that's a trustworthy person of integrity that will send that deal back to you if you're off, if you've sent it over to them. So that's the deal. The second risk is very much like it, which is being so afraid to send over deals because you're afraid of being cannibalized that you make no money on that front too. So that, to me, those are the two biggest risks that you're gonna see.
Yeah, it just occurred to me as you were just kind of describing that the fear thing. I know I find so often that there's this fear of not getting paid, or handing something off, kind of thing. And I think even when you talk about the right people, the integrity element is really kind of the core of that. If you understand somebody's got, they have integrity and they know what they're doing, or they, like you said, they're going to hit it back. That seems to be that's really the at least when I'm as I'm sitting there thinking about it, that is really the key to that whole thing. It's just that having that that relationship with that other person now. Chris, where can the listeners go if they'd like to learn more or connect with you?
Yeah. So two things. One, if you want to if you want to see whether this is right for your business, chriscraddock.com, CHRISCRADDOCK.com. Either me or somebody on my team can jump on a quick, like, 5-minute call with you and see whether your business is right for this, because it's not right for everybody. But I do think it's right for people that are bringing in enough leads. Even a minimal amount of leads, there's a lot of money to be made on that. So that's one. Two, if I have a podcast that's geared for the real estate agent who's also an investor. I know the average podcast listener listens to 7 podcasts, so please keep listening to this one, but I'd love to be one of your other 7. So that would be great. And then there's 2 other places. One on Instagram at CradRock. It's not my last name, but an old cheesy high school nickname, CRADDROCK, at CradRock. I had so many people be so generous with me when I was learning and when I was growing, and even now, to be willing to chat with me. So what I've decided, at least until it's just beyond what I can bear, which sometimes it takes me a few days or a week to get back to people, that I have said I will definitely answer everybody's DM that sends me a DM on Instagram. So if you have any questions, I'll definitely answer that. And then also, if you're the in-agent investor, we also have Uncommon Real Estate, the Facebook group, where we can, you can ask any questions or jump in on there. But that's mainly geared, the niche there is somebody who's a real estate agent and an investor.
Got it. And again, the name of your podcast?
It's also Uncommon Real Estate.
Okay, gotcha. I thought that was it, but I want to make sure. Well, Chris, I can't say thanks enough for taking the time to talk today. I've enjoyed it, learned a lot, and hope we can do it again soon.
This has been awesome. Thanks for the invite.
All right. For our listeners, if you like this episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Remember, the more you know, the more you grow. That's all we've got this week. Until next time, thanks for listening to Commercial Real Estate Pro Network's CRE PN Radio.